Hey, so in this video, I want to talk a little bit about boundaries, right? The importance of boundaries. If you're anything like me, as you've gotten older, you've come to realize just how necessary setting boundaries are in establishing a quality life. And that extends to establishing and maintaining a peace of mind amongst your friends, family, professional colleagues, right? But most people fail to set boundaries because what? It generally involves having a difficult conversation. Most people rather just cut someone off and not speak of it again. And while that's not the worst option in some cases, sometimes a relationship is salvageable, and that's where boundaries come in. So in this video, we're going to be focusing a little bit on emotional boundaries. That is making sure that your feelings are clearly communicated, respected, and protected, making sure you're doing it to someone else. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will be right and ready to set your own boundaries. So let's get into it. So think about how to best approach this topic. The first thing that came to mind was someone who I used to know who by many accounts is a wonderful person, right? And I truly mean that. However, it was a way that we viewed the people in our lives that created a conflict, and thereby boundaries had to be set. So to kind of take a step back and explain, by his own admission, coming up, he had it relatively easy, personally and professionally. Everything was kind of handed to him, an easy layup. It was only a question of when to ask, right? Whereas with myself, I didn't have the worst life in the world, the hardest life in the world, but I grew up in a marginalized community, single parent household for most of my life, took care of various relatives. So the differences between he and I really laid in our conditioning and our worldview, right? And again, that's where we had a little bit of an issue. So we hit this speed bump often where whenever we would begin to talk about our goals and the things we wanted to accomplish in the bigger picture, we'd always run into this issue where this is how I usually go. I'll say I want to accomplish A, B, and C. These are some of the obstacles that stay in my way. And this is what I'm going to do to overcome those obstacles. Whereas with him, it was always, well, I want to accomplish A, B, and C. These are the obstacles that I'm facing, and this is what I need you to do to help me overcome them. Now, there's nothing wrong with asking friends for help, and there were many occasions where I did help this person, but it seemed to me, and again, knowing his worldview and his background, everything that he wanted to accomplish always dealt with me in some way, dropping whatever I had going on and stepping in to help him. And in a way, I felt like he was trying to bring me to be part of his own little system of people that are just enablers and helping him do whatever he needs to do. And that didn't sit well with me, right? I also realized that he, in many cases, was leveraging the friendship to create some type of guilt, to make me feel guilty for not doing exactly what he needed me to do, what he wanted me to do. And again, I didn't like that either. So it came to a point where I realized that we kept hitting that same bump in the road. Whenever we talk about goals, what we want to do in the future, we always hit that bump in the road. There'd be some tension. We'd get into a minor argument, but we didn't talk for a couple of days. And someone calls the other person. You know how it is with friends. You start laughing again and everything is all good. But after 2-3 times, I realized that, hey, something's got to give. And I remember I was sitting to myself one night and I was saying, is it time to cut this person off? Right? Back then I was kind of black and white about things. Like if you're not in a person's life at the same frequency as you always are, then maybe it's time to cut them off, right? But then again, I was thinking about it and I said, well, and I didn't have the word boundary at that time, but I said, if you look at it like a pizza, I love 7 out of 8 slices. It's just one slice that I don't like. So if I was able to remove that one slice, we'd be good. So I thought about it some more and I realized that it was time to have a conversation about that slice, right? About that topic, because we always hit a bump in the road when we address it. So not long after that, this person reached a point in their career where it was time to make a job change, right? So once again, we had a conversation about what? Dreams, goals, career, big picture. And again, I love those conversations, so always happy to have them. So we launched into the conversation and we hit the same high notes we usually hit and we're having a good time, but I'm listening carefully and I know we're about to make that turn right into an ask. So right before I feel we're about to hit that point, I get proactive and I say, look, loving the conversation so far. I respect the fact that you're about to make a job change, but we've had this conversation or these types of conversations in the past. And it seems to me that whenever we talk about our goals, right, the things we want to accomplish, the conversation always whittles down to what I need to do for you, right? And again, you should always feel free to ask. However, I feel like this is happening time and time again, and you always make me feel guilty for not being able to do the full breadth of what you're asking for. And again, as a friend, I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it's fair to our relationship, right? So I really opened up holistically about how I was feeling, because I do believe you have to give people the full picture for them to understand. And much to my surprise, he took it well, and he saw where I was coming from, and he still made the ask. he didn't make the ask, but the conversation went well, and he understood where I was coming from, and I appreciated that. So we dipped more into that conversation, and I said, you know what you should do? Tell me, considering your plans, tell me what you plan to do, and how about I give you my perspective on it, and maybe give you some advice on how to best make that jump. And that's what we did, and it was clean as can be, right? A clean conversation. So we have the conversation, move on with our lives, right? A couple weeks later, again, he's in the throes of trying to make something happen. He gives me a call, and we have the conversation again. And almost as if he didn't remember anything we talked about, right? A little heart to heart. He starts to make ask after ask after ask. He starts to go back into that behavior that for me I felt was very toxic and unfair. And I told him, I said, look, we had this conversation. I told you, the boundary that I had. I said I didn't want to talk about this topic in this way. How about you tell me what's going on and maybe I can help? And he didn't want to have it. And then we hung up the phone and we didn't talk for weeks, right? The longest we've ever went without talking. And much to my surprise, right after some time had passed, I thought the relationship was done. He gives me a call and he apologizes, right? I guess he kind of sombered down and let everything ruminate for a bit. And he said that, he was out of place, the way that he approached me, and he was disrespectful and things like that. And I forgave him because I don't hold grudges. But what ended up happening was, after that conversation, we never really talked again, right? The relationship ironically kind of waned after that. So, this doesn't have a Disney ending. But the one thing that I do think would be very helpful for you, particularly as you begin to examine your own relationships, maybe setting some boundaries, is the fact that I never took any topics off the table, right? I never followed up and said, hey, we can't talk about success, our goals, our big picture future, right? Never took those topics off the table because I understood that it wasn't the topics themselves that was problematic, but the way we addressed those topics. So as you look into your relationships, maybe some blow-ups you've had in the past or more currently, it might not be the topics that are problematic, but the way you or the other person go about addressing those topics that causes the explosions, right? So I hate that me and this person don't have the relationship that we used to have, but when you begin to set boundaries in your life, and I really do believe this, you're effectively teaching people how to treat you, right? You're teaching people how to treat you, and the people that are meant to stay in your life will stay in your life, and the people that are meant to wane away will wane away. And look, at the end of the day, what I did get, although there was a violation of my boundary, I did get an apology, right? Through that rumination process, he acknowledged, like, hey, I stepped over a line that I shouldn't have. And imagine if I didn't say anything. Imagine if I just kept nodding my head or ignoring it, right? There would have been a big blowout. I would have become bitter. Usually people find a way to project how they feel anyway. So setting that boundary was necessary. One thing I always say with my newfound philosophy is that, much of the outcomes that we desire often lie behind a difficult conversation. So be willing to have those difficult conversations, set those boundaries you need to set, those boundaries you should have been set, and I wish you the best in your relationships, and hopefully my story gave you that perspective that you needed.